Jameis Winston was the #1 overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft after a phenomenal collegiate career while playing at Florida State. He was drafted by second-year general manager Jason Licht to be the hopeful franchise savior of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an organization that had not had a true franchise quarterback since their inception, going all the way back to 1976. And while Jameis Winston's career was off to a great start from his rookie year, there was certainly a lot of highs and a lot of lows throughout Winston's time in Tampa Bay that would eventually lead to him being replaced by GOAT Tom Brady in the 2020 offseason and would lead to the Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl 1 year after moving on from their former #1 overall pick. But how did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get in that situation to begin with? How did Jameis Winston go from a #1 overall pick in 2015, rising through the collegiate game and throughout the early stages of his NFL career, to falling so far to where he would be replaced and his team would win a Super Bowl without him? That is what we're going to be diving into in today's video. Hope you guys all enjoy.
Black 20!
Only 3 points scored in the entire half. An interception for a touchdown.
Let's go back to the 2013 season. It was Jameis Winston's first college season as a starting quarterback, and things went really well for Florida State along the way. Jameis Winston won the national championship that year, as well as a plethora of trophies, including the Heisman Trophy, the Walter Camp Award, the Manning Award, the Davey O'Brien Award. He was the AP College Football Player of the Year, the SN College Player of the Year. He was a consensus All-American. He was the ACC Player of the Year, the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, the ACC Rookie of the Year, and the ACC Offensive Rookie of the Year. Also, he was a first-team All-ACC player as well. Jameis Winston absolutely lit the world on fire throughout that season, passing for over 4,000 yards, a 66.9 completion percentage, 40 passing touchdowns to only 10 passing interceptions. It was far and away the best year of Jameis Winston, possibly football career to this point. Also, Florida State finished with a 14-0 record. Things continued to go well in 2014 as Florida State would finish with a 12-1 record. Jameis Winston would finish just a little shy of 4,000 passing yards with 3,907, 25 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, which was far and away more than the 10 he had thrown the previous year. However, he still did win the ACC Athlete of the Year award and overall was looking very good, shaping up to entering the NFL Draft. Now, while we can talk about Jameis Winston and the great years that he had as a football player in the 2013 and 2014 seasons, we also need to mention the off-the-field situations that happened as well surrounding Winston during this time. The most serious one being on November 14th, 2013, Jameis Winston had sexual assault allegations thrown his way that would last all the way to 2016, whenever Jameis Winston was already a part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And folks, this was a very complicated situation that we can't get into throughout the entirety of this video, but countersuing was involved from Winston for defamation. There was eventually a settlement out of court made with the university to the woman who had filed these investigations, or I guess I should say these allegations, I should say. But it was certainly a situation that needed to be addressed and would not be the last time Winston would happen to deal with allegations of this sort. You then have some shoplifting incidences that did occur in July of 2013. A Burger King employee filed a complaint saying that Winston was stealing soda from the Burger King, and in 2029 of 2014, much to the memes of the internet, Jameis Winston was given an adult citation for shoplifting crab legs from a Tallahassee Publix store. Now, he would have to serve 20 hours of community service and was suspended from any college baseball activity until he completed said community service. You then also had a situation on September 17th in 2014 where Winston was suspended for half of Florida State's game against Clemson due to the fact that he shouted a vulgar internet meme, let's say, while standing atop a table in Florida State University's student union. Now, a couple of these incidences can be written off as immaturity, the shoplifting incidences, the vulgar comments, but of course, I don't have to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Sexual assault allegations are very serious and should be treated very seriously, and I believe all of these incidences raised some questions in NFL teams' minds as to the maturity of Jameis Winston, and taking a deeper look into all of these situations for NFL teams' sakes to try and get all the information they need going into the upcoming 2015 NFL Draft, because yes, while Jameis Winston was a fantastic player on the football field the past 2 years for Florida State, you did have these incidences off the field that needed to be dove deeper into and needed more security and more of a reassurance on NFL teams' minds. What were the Buccaneers doing during 2013 and 2014? Well, not a lot of winning, that's for sure.
And here comes Beast Mode.
Oh, Lord.
Who's going to tackle?
Ain't nobody trying to get in front of
125 yards on the day for him. That's 12 straight wins at home, and Tampa Bay falls to 0-8 for the first time since 1985.
In 2013, Greg Schiano's last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the team went 4-12. Quarterback Mike Glennon was the team's starting quarterback after the benching of Josh Freeman, and Glennon would go with a 4-9 record, 19 touchdowns to 9 interceptions with 2,608 passing yards. The following season, they would sign quarterback Josh McCown from the Chicago Bears at the age of 35. Now, to Josh McCown's credit, he had started 5 games for the Bears the previous season with a 3-2 record, 13 passing touchdowns to only 1 interception. The Bucs thought that McCown could be a stopgap quarterback for them and brand new head coach Lovie Smith. However, this was not the case. The Buccaneers would go 2-14 during this season. Josh McCown would start in 11 games for the Bucs with a 1-10 record, 2,206 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Backup quarterback Mike Glennon would start 5 games for the Bucs during this time, passing for 1,417 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 1-4 record. The Buccaneers would end up with the number 1 overall pick, and they had a decision to make. Were they going to select FSU quarterback Jameis Winston, or were they going to select Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota? Now, Marcus Mariota was a legit force in college football and really could have also been a legit candidate to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL Draft in 2015. Throughout his college career, he finished with a 36-5 record, 10,796 passing yards, starting 3 years for Oregon, 105 passing touchdowns to only 14 interceptions. He would also add 2,237 rushing yards and 29 rushing touchdowns. You also take a look overall at his collegiate awards. They're very impressive. A 2014 Heisman Trophy, a 2014 Maxwell Award, Walter Camp Award, Manning Award, Davey O'Brien Award, Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, AP College Football Player of the Year Award, SN Player of the Year Award, unanimous All-American, Polynesian Football Player of the Year, Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, and a first-team All-Pac-12, and that was just in 2014 alone. You also consider that in 2012, he was the Pac-12 Offensive Freshman of the Year and was a first-team All-Pac-12 in 2012 and in 2013 also. And Mariota had just as, if not an even more impressive resume than Winston throughout their respective college careers. Now, one thing to consider is that Mariota did have one more year of starting play than Winston at the college level, which will certainly skew those stats a little bit more, but both of these guys certainly had the talent to be the number 1 overall pick at that time. And while Winston was viewed as the gunslinger who had the better arm talent overall coming out of college and going into the NFL, Marcus Mariota was tabbed more as a modern-day style of quarterback who can not just throw the football with efficiency, but run the football out of the pocket as well. So the Buccaneers certainly had a tough decision to make on their hands as to which quarterback was going to guide their franchise to the future. And overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would decide on Jameis Winston being their number 1 overall pick in the 2015 NFL Draft. He signed a 4-year, $23.35 million contract with the Buccaneers. Meanwhile, Marcus Mariota would be the number 2 overall pick to the Tennessee Titans in the same draft. And the Buccaneers would actually start off Winston's career with them against Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans in Winston's first regular season action in the NFL. The Bucs would lose 42-14. Winston's first ever NFL pass was intercepted and returned for a touchdown by Titans cornerback Cody Sensabaugh, which is really a theme that we will see for Winston in the future. Winston's interception was the first time a rookie's first pass was returned for a touchdown since Brett Favre in 1991, a quarterback Winston would be compared to a lot throughout his time in the NFL. However, it wasn't all negative for Winston throughout his rookie year. Winston would tie an NFL rookie record and a Buccaneers franchise record as well, with 5 touchdown passes against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2015. Winston would also set franchise rookie records in pass attempts, pass completions, passing yards, and passing touchdowns in his rookie year. He would finish the season with 4,042 passing yards, 23 yards short of the franchise record set by Josh Freeman in 2012. He was the 3rd rookie quarterback to pass for over 4,000 yards in a season in NFL history. He was named to the NFL All-Rookie Team for the 2015 season, the 4th Buccaneers quarterback to receive the award, joining Tom Owen, Doug Williams, and Mike Glennon. Now, Tom Brady elected to not participate in the 2016 Pro Bowl, and as a result of that, Winston made his first and so far only ever Pro Bowl, making him the first rookie quarterback in Buccaneers history to make a Pro Bowl in his first season. However, despite all of this, the Buccaneers would finish with a 6-10 record. Lovie Smith would be fired from his role as head coach, and the team would promote offensive coordinator Dirk Koetter to the position of head coach to keep continuity with Jameis Winston. 2016 would continue to see Jameis Winston rise throughout his young career as the Buccaneers would finish with a 9-7 record, the first time the Bucs had a winning season in 6 years after they beat the Carolina Panthers in the regular season finale. However, they would not make the playoffs due to a tiebreaker with the Detroit Lions. However, Jameis Winston was ranked the 57th overall player in the NFL's top 100 players of 2017. Winston was also the first quarterback in NFL history to start his career with consecutive seasons of 4,000 yards passing. Winston also broke the franchise records for passing yards and passing touchdowns in a season during this year, which again continued the good trajectory of Winston as a whole. He would finish with 4,090 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. While the interceptions were a little bit high, something that was starting to become a bit of a trend for Winston as a whole at this point, even going back to his final year in college football, things were still looking good to the point where if Winston could clean up those interceptions, seems like the Buccaneers had made the right decision in terms of tabbing Winston as their franchise quarterback going forward. However, in 2017, things began to take a turn for the worst regarding Jameis Winston and his time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as during a Week 6 game against the Arizona Cardinals, Winston would leave the game with a right shoulder injury, and the next day it was discovered that Winston had suffered a sprained AC joint in his right shoulder. Now, Winston wanted to play through this injury and would eventually do so, but Winston would eventually be taken out in a Week 9 loss against the Saints due to an injury to the same shoulder. Now, the next day it was announced that Winston would miss at least the next 2 weeks for his shoulder to get some rest. There also was an altercation between Winston and Saints cornerback Marshon Lattimore during this time, in which Mike Evans got into a bit of a scuffle, let's say, with Lattimore during the game. Winston was fined $12,000 for his part in this incident. However, during this year, Winston did become the second youngest player in NFL history to reach 10,000 career passing yards. He was only 4 days older than the record holder, Drew Bledsoe. Now, Winston did miss the next 3 games due to his injury, returned in Week 13. However, the Bucs did finish with a 5-11 record. Winston would finish with 3,504 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions throughout this season. Another thing that was also important to consider is that the team had signed Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the backup quarterback to Jameis Winston. Fitzpatrick would finish with a 2-1 record, 1,103 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So, Winston, now entering a crucial part of his career to showcase if he can be the guy, not only was dealing with injury issues, but also had to worry about a very capable veteran in Fitzpatrick looming over him as a possibility to supplant him as the starter at any point. This is also the year in 2017 where another off-the-field incident would occur with Jameis Winston. On November 17th, 2017, the NFL conducted an investigation where Winston allegedly a female Uber driver in 2016. It was eventually revealed that Ronald Darby, who also attended Florida State with Jameis Winston, was on board in the Uber ride in which the incident occurred. Now, Darby did defend Winston against the allegations. The investigation, however, found evidence that Winston got into another Uber ride alone, which was consistent with the account that had taken place. It was concluded that Winston had violated the personal conduct policy by touching the driver in an inappropriate manner without her consent. The league announced on June 21st of 2018 that they would be suspending Winston for the first 3 games of the 2018 season as a result of his involvement in the incident, which it carried through on said suspension on June 28th. So, coming out of injuries in 2017, Winston would now not be available yet again to start the 2018 season due to off-the-field concerns once more. I think that you could argue that 2018 was one of the lower years for Winston's career with the Buccaneers, coming off of a good amount of injuries during the 2017 season and now dealing with a suspension to start the 2018 season. The waters were certainly murky at this point. Now, the Bucs did pick up the 5th-year option on Winston's contract, which you can deem as a good thing. However, when Winston did return to the Bucs in Week 4 against the Chicago Bears, he didn't start. He would eventually replace then starter Ryan Fitzpatrick in the 3rd quarter, but things didn't really get much better. Winston would finish that game with 145 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. In Week 6 against the Falcons, he would throw for 395 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions in a 34-9 loss. Things took a nosedive whenever the Bucs played the Cincinnati Bengals, where Winston would throw for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. He would then be benched in the 3rd quarter for Ryan Fitzpatrick coming back as the team's starting quarterback. Then, a couple of weeks later in Week 11 against the Giants, Ryan Fitzpatrick would throw 3 interceptions and was again benched for Jameis Winston in the second half. He would throw for 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception in the Buccaneers' loss. 2 weeks later, in a win against the Panthers, things would improve. He would pass for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and would break the franchise record for passing touchdowns in a career with 81. A couple of weeks later, Jameis Winston would throw for 336 yards, 1 touchdown against the Dallas Cowboys, breaking the franchise record for completions in a career previously held by Josh Freeman. However, this season would end with a lot of controversy and a bit of a divide for the Bucs, as they would finish with a 5-11 record yet again. Head coach Dirk Cutter would be fired. Winston would finish starting 9 games to Ryan Fitzpatrick's 7. Winston would throw 19 touchdowns to 14 interceptions with 2,992 passing yards. Fitzpatrick would finish with 2,366 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. And you could really feel that there was a divide, not just amongst the fan base, but possibly even the locker room as well, as to who the starting quarterback should be going forward. Was it going to be Jameis Winston? Was it going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick? Or was it going to be somebody else entirely? 2019 was certainly the weirdest year, in my opinion, for Jameis Winston's time with the Bucs, where you saw a lot of good and a lot of bad also. Dirk Cutter was fired and was replaced with head coach Bruce Arians, a coach who was deemed to be a quarterback whisperer. And yes, the Bucs did lose 31-17 in Week 1 against the 49ers, but Winston did break the franchise record for passing yards in a career previously held by Vinny Testaverde. However, Winston would throw 3 interceptions in that game, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. A couple of weeks later, Jameis Winston would have a fantastic 55-40 win over the LA Rams, where he would win the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. During a Week 6 game against the Carolina Panthers, Jameis Winston became the first Bucs quarterback in franchise history to pass for 100 touchdowns in a career, but finished that Week 6 loss against the Panthers with 1 touchdown, a lost fumble, and a career-high 5 interceptions as the Bucs lost 37-26. A couple of weeks later, Winston would break another franchise record previously held by Testaverde for career passing attempts, but would finish that game a loss to the Tennessee Titans 27-23 with 2 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles. Then, a couple of weeks later, Winston would continue to have turnovers. 2 interceptions in a Week 10 win against the Arizona Cardinals, 4 interceptions in a game against the Saints after that. Winston really couldn't get out of his way this year with all the different turnovers that had plagued him throughout his time, not just in the NFL, but also in his final year of college football as well. He would throw 3 interceptions in a win against the Indianapolis Colts, but Winston would also break the Bucs single-season franchise record for passing yards that he set in 2016, becoming the first quarterback in franchise history to pass for over 4,100 yards in a season. But, as I said, the interceptions and the turnover issues would continue for Winston, and yes, while he did also become the first quarterback in NFL history to have consecutive games over 450 passing yards, and he did break his own record for passing touchdowns in a single season in 2016, and was also the first quarterback in franchise history to throw 30 passing touchdowns in a single season. While the Bucs were competing for a playoff spot the past couple weeks of the year, in Week 16, a 23-20 loss against the Houston Texans, Winston would throw 4 interceptions, 1 returned for a touchdown, and in Week 17, a 28-22 loss in overtime, a game that I was at, by the way, Winston would throw 2 more interceptions, including a game-ending interception that was returned for a touchdown in overtime. Now, Winston became the first the 8th quarterback in NFL history to throw for 5,000 passing yards in a single season, the first Bucs quarterback to throw for 5,000 yards in a single season, and the first quarterback in NFL history to throw at least 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a single season. And yes, Winston set new career highs, leading the league in passing yards, completions, attempts. And he also threw a career high in touchdowns, but he also led the league in interceptions and in total turnovers, something that Winston could never, ever shake during his time with the Bucs. During his 5 years in Tampa Bay, he threw 88 interceptions in 5 years. That's not good. That is an average of 21 interceptions per year. And yes, there's a lot of reasons as to why interceptions can happen. Sometimes it's the receiver dropping the ball, sometimes it's pressure getting after the quarterback. It is important to remember that Jameis Winston was one of the most pressured and sacked quarterbacks during that time, but it was very apparent also that not just the interceptions, but the fumbles as well were having a significant impact on not just Winston's play and his trajectory, but the overall play and trajectory of the Buccaneers as a whole. And Tampa Bay had a decision to make. Were they going to extend Jameis Winston, who was coming off of his 5th-year option and the final year of his contract, or were they going to go in a different direction? A couple of important things to note throughout that 2019 season, by the way, is that Jameis Winston would repair a torn meniscus following the season. He would have LASIK surgery during the season as well. He was dealing with a knee injury, was dealing with a broken thumb during the 2019 season as well. However, despite all of this, the Buccaneers would go in a different direction. They would replace Winston with longtime New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. The Bucs would win the Super Bowl in their first year away from Jameis Winston, and Winston would sign a 1-year contract with the Saints worth a little over $1.1 million in base salary with a maximum deal of a little over $4 million. And Winston would be the backup quarterback to Drew Brees during this time. He would play in some games due to Brees dealing with injuries of his own. And overall, Winston was good for the Saints during that time. He would finish the 2020 season with the Saints with some spark that he could be something for the Saints' future. Now, he would be deemed the starter in 2021, would pass for 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1,170 passing yards. However, interceptions would rear, or I guess I should say, injuries would rear their ugly head yet again, as Winston would suffer a torn ACL and MCL in a game against his former team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Winston would then sign a 2-year extension with the Saints in 2022 for $28 million on a 2-year deal. He would deal with more injuries in 2022, back fractures, which left him to eventually be replaced by Andy Dalton throughout the remainder of the 2022 season. And since that time, Winston has been a backup ever since. First in 2023, he was the backup behind Derek Carr. He finds himself in 2024 signing a backup deal with the Cleveland Browns behind quarterback Deshaun Watson. So overall, where did things go wrong with Jameis Winston? And I know a lot of people like to point to one thing or the other, saying it was just the interceptions, or it was just the team surrounding Jameis Winston, or it was just this, or it was just that. Folks, I believe that it was a combination of things. Firstly, I want to say this. I don't believe the off-the-field issues really played a factor into Jameis Winston not working in Tampa Bay, as he only had one incident during his time in the NFL, as the sexual assault allegations were pretty much wrapped up early in his NFL career, and it seemed like the Uber incident was a quick open and closed case as well. However, I will say things really began to unravel for Winston during that 2017 and 2018 seasons. Winston was definitely on the rise coming out of 2015 and 2016. He made a Pro Bowl. He had 28 touchdowns in 2016. However, as injuries and the suspension reared their ugly head, it left the door open for other opportunities and other possibilities to occur in the organization. The Bucs could see what they got from Ryan Fitzpatrick during that 2017 and 2018 season as well. A new head coach was brought in to try and help Jameis Winston in 2019 in Bruce Arians, but the turnover issues still reared their ugly head in that mix as well, and Winston was still dealing with some injuries in his own right during that year also. I think it's a combination of injuries leaving the door open for other opportunities for the organization, as well as the turnover issues ultimately never being fully fixed. Now, whether that was purely on Winston, whether that was purely on the pass catchers dropping the ball, or miscommunications, or coaching, or whatever it may be, it's a combination of all those things. Point being is that it didn't work out, and turnovers were never corrected for Winston until he would eventually go and join another team with the New Orleans Saints. And also, I don't blame the Buccaneers for wanting to replace a 25-year-old Jameis Winston with a GOAT, the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. It certainly worked out. They won a Super Bowl in year number 1, for goodness sakes. I think that whenever I look at the time of Winston and why it didn't work out, it was certainly a combination of things that if just one or two things went a different way, Jameis Winston could and likely would still be the starting quarterback for the Bucs today. If those injuries didn't occur in 2017 and 2018, if that suspension didn't occur in 2018, if he would have thrown 5, 10 less interceptions in 2019, if Tom Brady wasn't available following the 2019 season, what would have happened? Ultimately, we have no idea, and the Bucs have well and away moved on. Baker Mayfield is their current starting quarterback as of the recording of this video. They won many games with Tom Brady at quarterback, and Winston had a couple of moments with the New Orleans Saints as well and is looking to get his career back on track. And ultimately, while Jameis Winston's time in Tampa Bay had some low moments, it certainly had its fair share of high moments as well, but unfortunately, ultimately, things just did not work out. But what do you guys think about Jameis Winston's time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear it. And the 5 years that Winston had with the Bucs. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.